Mabe here, because he too is also an ANC staffer technically. And Pule Mabe, have you been paid in the last 4 months?
Well, I stand in solidarity with the workers. When they are not being paid, it means I'm also not being paid. I'm a worker of the ANC. I earn my salary. I'm supposed to earn my salary from the ANC every month to be able to meet my monthly obligation like any other person who is employed, like yourself. You know, so we are in solidarity with the workers because we are them. We work for the ANC, and we understand the time that they had to commit during an electioneering period to make sure that they campaign for the ANC even when they had not received their own salaries. And we are thankful of that because it showed that they are willing to put the African National Congress first. But it cannot continue like that. We are now entering into a very demanding period. Festive season, you know what happens. We slaughter, we buy clothes for kids, we want to go on holiday and do all of that. Now, when you have not received your salaries, how are you able to do that? The commitment we made when we met with them earlier, and this was communicated by Comrade Nomvola, Comrade Dagota was here, Comrade Besane, and Mamba Tabi. We made a commitment that on the agenda of the NWC and the NEC, we will make sure that this issue of staff salaries is number one on the agenda. And that when we rise at least with, you know, some sort of a position on what is going to be happening.
And speaking of positions though, Pule, it wasn't long ago when these same staffers had their memorandum received by Acting Secretary General Jesse Duarte, where commitments then were made. You're someone who would have proximity to someone like Jesse Duarte. Have you gotten any undertaking as to what exactly seems to be the hold-up when it comes to the payments of these salaries?
Well, the DSG is equally concerned as we all are. The Treasurer General has outlined what would have been the challenges. We have said that we need to find a way of dealing with these challenges in a manner that it does not disadvantage our staff. If the ANC needs to look at rationalizing or various other forms of redeploying its own cadres, even outside the ANC, but still allow them to do the work of the movement, it must be able to pronounce on that because they need to have some sense of job security. They need to wake up knowing what's going to be happening to them at the end of the month. I mean, Janet here, her daughter just got admitted at a crash. We had to mobilize resources just for her to pay the 3,000 rand that was needed. Every time when I need the DIP team to come and do the work of the ANC, we have to make sure that we scratch here and there. Now, you might have seen, employees were busy putting out 10 rands, 20 rands. We did ourselves put in that kitty. So they could buy some loaves of bread, some drinks, so that while they push with this protest, they don't do so on an empty stomach.
Let me tell you what I struggle with here, though. That millions were raised for your election campaign, and no one considered in the NEC that you sit on to actually try and give some of that money to the ANC staffers. 33 million rand, according to the IEC. So you saying crowdfunding?
Well, it is not entirely factual what you are saying. You know, because there are months where staffers were paid, there are months where they were not paid. So I don't want us to get into that detail. What staff members are
actually... But the point is you're still struggling to pay staffers, and yet you are able to pay for this election campaign. And that's what I'm trying to get an understanding of.
But you see, while there's debts associated with salary payouts, it is not necessarily that open. You could find that in certain instances it's 1 or 2 months of those. And the commitment we got was that this month settlement will be made where all of these HR related debts are handled. These people are not just complaining about salaries. There are issues that have got to do with UIF, Provident Fund and all of that. So if you just limit it to salary.
It still doesn't change the fact that it hasn't been paid, Pule, and yet the party is able to raise funds for things that matter to it. So that's my point. Whether it's just salaries or UIF or Provident Fund, I'm going to allow you, but I'm saying to you that you're digressing from the point of what I'm asking you. The point is that you are able to raise millions of rands for party activities, and yet the people who must execute that are not being paid.
Okay, I'm sure you don't have answers. You want me to answer? Okay. You see, we are in the NWC. in this NWC and the NEC, we are going to receive reports. We are putting this issue on top of the agenda. We are going to receive reports on how and when these payouts to staff are going to be done. We also want to be told clearly on what is a way forward to ensure that we do not expose our employees to this kind of a situation. We've got our own workers, who some are hospitalized, some have lost their own valuables. We stand in solidarity with them. I'm a worker of the ANC, so my condition is not better. When they are not paid, I'm also not paid. It's just that sometimes, because we are also in the leadership, we carry the responsibility of also having to protect the African National Congress. But it doesn't mean that our conditions are better. The grievances that they have got are the same one that myself, Dakota, Besani, Comrade Nomvola, Comrade Batavile, Comrade Malusi have got. I mean, Comrade Nomvola was explaining earlier to me that it had reached a point where it's even becoming difficult for banks to extend a credit line. Remember, when the bank gives you credit, you need to demonstrate that you have got something coming in, month in, every month. But if there's nothing coming in, how are you going to, how are you going to at least give them that kind of comfort that you'll be able to settle your debt? You can't even raise overdrafts so that you can make up in the absence of not being paid.
All right, Pule Mabe speaks on behalf of the ANC, but he's also an ANC staffer. Showing solidarity and paying your bills, Hugo, not necessarily the same thing. Many have lost their assets, much to the admission of the leadership of the ANC. So hopefully, in the outcomes of this National Working Committee meeting, they'll be able to provide a more sustainable solution to this quagmire.